Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Jones, and I am the founder and CEO of the Cultural Heritage Economic Alliance. I'm the director of the National Blacks in Travel and Tourism Collaborative, also BTT. And I want to welcome you to the Blacks in Travel and Tourism Dollars and Cents webinar series that we kicked off in June. We've been bringing diverse faces and voices representing various parts of the industry to have vital conversations about diversity and inclusion, as well as advancing Blacks in travel and tourism. So we want to thank you to those who are joining us for the first time, and welcome back to those of you who have been tuning in since June. Today, we are honored to engage with some of the industry's top leaders representing Brand USA, as well as the World Travel and Tourism Council. They'll be talking about their work and the importance of diversity and inclusion in our industry. For those of you who are not familiar with Blacks in Travel and Tourism, we work to level the playing field and to advance Blacks in travel and tourism. We invite you to join the collaborative and to work alongside us to help create broader diversity, inclusion, and equity for Black travel and tourism businesses and local community stakeholders. We have several opportunities for DMOs, small businesses, and other industry stakeholders to engage with us. And we welcome you to join the collaborative, and you can visit blacksintourism.org to join the collaborative and to learn more about our work. Working together, we can create a more diverse and inclusive and stronger tourism ecosystem for all. I want to talk a little bit about our next webinar, which is next Saturday, not next Saturday, next Thursday, on Thursday, July 23rd, and we will hear from some of the top Black hospitality and tourism educators discussing the state of their programs and how they are preparing our next generation of industry leaders. You will have an opportunity to pose questions to our panelists, and feel free to post a question, and we'll do our best to try to answer them all during our Q&A following this conversation. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Ms. Dawn Drew, CEO of Most Inc. and an industry veteran. So Dawn, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Oops, unmute. There
Okay,
you go.
great.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dawn Drew, a former everything. I'm the former vice president publisher of the world's largest circulation travel magazine, Nat Geo Traveler. And over a 20-year period, I've been able to engage inside the travel industry, very much the way that the Black Travel and Tourism Collaborative is engaging inside of the travel industry. For multiple terms, I've been a board member, an officer, a participant in the U.S. Travel Association, which was TIA at one point, the Pacific Asia Tourism Association, the Prince of Wales International Business Leaders Forum, the United States Department of Commerce's Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, and many others. And during the past 10 years, I principally worked overseas. Engaging with the Black Travel and Tourism Collaborative is my welcome back to the USA. And I'm honored to participate and work with a very dynamic Stephanie Jones. So thank you for having me today. Just a few words before I introduce the panel. The specter of the Black Lives Matters movement has forced the industry to really re-examine its history of race-based in or exclusion. While jobs and career growth are at the forefront of the discussion, an equally large industry consideration is how the country can sustainably weave experiencing Black culture through Black businesses into its travel marketing, promotions, and messages. There's no shortage of cultural heritage travelers who plan to visit the African American History Museum in Washington, or go to Atlanta for a Martin Luther King experience, or to Birmingham to recreate or re-experience Bloody Sunday, or to visit the Madam C.J. Walker's house in Tarrytown. These are really big, visible things to do. But finding and reaching the tiny, cultural, intensely personal business is much harder. Keeping these same small businesses alive is crucial to keeping alive the concept of deep, cultural, enriching experiences that most travelers seek, especially the lucrative international visitor. So let's keep a couple things in perspective as they pertain to jobs and the business. we have to look at the concept of essential. The current health, economic, and civic issues in this country have forced us to pause during a period of sustained growth. 2019 was a huge year for the industry, but this crisis has made us re-examine and redefine who, what, and where things are essential to our general well-being and to our economy. Many of the lowest paid workers in the travel industry, especially hospitality and restaurant retail, have become essential to ensuring the health, safety, and satisfaction of the customer. The person who cleans the room, wipes the table, serves the food is now first line. How will this shift or impact jobs, job security, and compensation? Something for us to think about and examine as we move forward. The second thing to consider is business resilience. At the root of today's discussion is the concept of inclusive design. The current business climate is harsh and concepts of survival are most pressing, but we need to look ahead and build resilience as the economic pulse begins to quicken. The inbound international traveler is the most lucrative and the most elusive for the tiny cultural heritage businesses and markets that are not hubs. How to cultivate this target traveler is a crucial consideration for any business. And then pondering the new normal. We really have the opportunity to build a new paradigm rather than a normal, to create a new standard, not to rebuild what has been imperfect by the way of exclusion. Everyone cannot participate in everything, but how we open up the doors and create multi-level and inclusive systemic change is key. So first, welcome and thank you to each of our distinguished panelists. They prepared brief slide presentations, and we will begin with Dr. Dennis Rogers, who will provide an economic overview of the Black consumer and Black business market. We'll move on to Helen Morano, who will talk about the international and domestic landscape in travel, and then to Tom Garzilli, who will discuss specific marketing tactics being created by Brand USA. We'll open up for Q&A after all the presentations have been given. So we're honored to have with us Dr. Dennis Rogers. Dr. Rogers holds a master's and a PhD from Howard University in political science. He has served as a consultant with high security clearance to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, and the U.S. Department of State. Dr. Rogers has also been a congressional liaison for the K Street law firm Humphreys & Partners in Washington, D.C. He founded and is currently chairman of Student Leadership Development, an LLC that focuses on the education and development of student leaders, connecting them to mentors, professional development programs, and opportunities to prepare them for leadership in society. Helen Morano is our next panelist. Helen's distinguished and long career in the travel industry have deemed her a travel business and travel policy expert. She is currently based in London, so we're lucky to have her with us today, and is the founder and president of Morano Perspectives. Helen's experience and leadership in both the U.S. domestic and international travel industries include director of the U.S. Department of Commerce's National Travel and Tourism Office, where she engaged with all of the U.S. domestic NTOs and the International Visit USA offices. She was Senior VP and then Executive VP of the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC, and she has served as Special Advisor to the WTTC and directly engages with the UNWTO and other UN agencies. I would be remiss in not telling you that over the years, Helen has opened up many doors, especially for me. I have twice been a member of the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board under her leadership and once as Vice Chairman. Thank you personally, Helen, and thank you for being with us today. And we have Tom Garzilli. Tom also has a long career in the travel industry. His bio says 5 decades, but that must be a mistake unless he began working in day camp. I have known Tom for at least 2 of those decades when he was head of Custom Marketing Group, a custom publishing and destination marketing firm. Since 2013, Tom has been with Brand USA and is the Chief Marketing Officer. He leads the development of Brand USA's strategic marketing plans and has created, along with his team, many successful strategies, notably the Many Voices multi-screen program, something we'll hear more about today as Tom discusses tactical initiatives for Brand USA. So please, Dr. Rogers, if you can unmute your mic, we will start with you.
Excellent. Good to see everyone. We'll jump right into the presentation. And here we are. Black consumer data and business travel. Let's take a look at the full picture. So what we have is 46.3 million African Americans or Blacks, I'll use these terms interchangeably, in America. That comprises 14% of the total US pop, right, of 31 million. Now, when we look at this particular community generationally, we see that within the silent generation, and that is those who participated in World War II, that we have 5% or 2.31 million. And then when we look at the baby boomers, the children of the silent generation, that's 20% of that total population, which is 9.26 million baby boomers in the African American community. That number is echoed again in Generation X, which were those born between 1965 and 1980. And then we see an uptick in terms of millennials. It jumps from 9.26 million to 11 million millennials. And that particular population makes up 24% of the total African American population. The average age, in fact, of the African American population is 29. That means they're young, they're vibrant, they're looking forward optimistically to the future. But in order for that to be the average, look at how many are below that number. And this is what's known now as Generation Z. There are 11, there's a decimal missing here. It should be one over on the other side of the 4. Thank you. There's 11.43 million African Americans in Generation Z. And that's those born between 2001 and currently. So we see them now in college. They're having the experience that we're observing in media and in social media. Next, please. Okay, so the economic inequity. Let's talk about the economics of those generations combined. The entire gross domestic product for the United States is $21.4 trillion. And this number, the second number, has been tracked for quite a while, and that is the notion that the GDP for Blacks in America is $1.4 trillion. That's the spending power of that group of African Americans, Blacks that we're talking about. Now, here's something I want you to kind of wrap your mind around. If equity in pay existed, then the 14% of the American population would in fact earn 14% of the GDP, or would be responsible for 14% of the GDP. What that means is this $1.4 trillion, if all things were equal, if there were equal playing field, if there were equal compensation, then the GDP for Blacks in America would literally be $2.99 trillion. So when you hear the notion that there are people who make 60 cents on the dollar of their counterparts in the marketplace, that speaks to this other $1.59 trillion of value that we have yet to realize in the economy. Next, please. Okay, one back. Wonderful. It's okay. Here we go. It's dancing. There we go. Right there. Perfect. Okay, so according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Black consumer spending breaks out in this manner: from $50,000 annual household income and above, literally 4 out of 10 families, 37% of Black households have income from $50,000 and above. Let that sink in. What does that mean for travel and tourism? That means that there is, in fact, discretionary spending available for travel expenditures. So 12% of households in the African American community have income of over $100,000. 9%, can we go back, please? I guess this, okay. 9% of those households make between $75,000 and $99,000. Again, 16% between that 50 and 74.99 number is the annual household income for families in the Black community. Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Okay, so what I want you to tune into is when we look at the red are the essential workers that Dawn talked about. And what this is, this table, is this the percent distribution of Blacks employed age 16 years and older, and this is 2019 data, okay? So 28% of Black communities that are employed in the educational and health services field. And we're going to see a later graph that talks about in what business genres we find African American businesses, and there's a direct correlation. Another 10% are essential workers in retail. And this are the people that we see in the grocery store, the people that we see working in pharmacies. This is 10.3% of that 44 million African Americans. And in the leisure and hospitality industry, we see 9.9%, which is actually an uptick on the larger population. That 9.2% of the larger population are in the leisure and hospitality industry. Now, we know that within the leisure and hospitality industry, there is transportation, there is administration. So some of these other numbers, if we're thinking comprehensively, actually apply as well. So when we look down, for example, in the area of public administration and financial activities, some of that also is included in travel and tourism administration and in financial activities within the travel and tourism industry. But when we look again at this notion of essential workers, that 28%, 10%, literally another 10%, we're looking at 48% of African Americans are essential workers during this time. Amazing. Thank you. So now let's talk about, we've talked about the fact that 37% of Black households make above 50,000. Let's talk now about how they decide to deploy their revenue. More than other consumers, family and culture are the primary purchase influencers among Black communities. And here I'm going to give you an anecdotal case in point. The McDonald's Corporation was actually on the downslope about, I think it was 15 or 20 years ago. They employed African American culture to come up with this a catchy way for their theme, ba-da-ba-bum-bum, to be utilized. It was turned into a song that was sung by Justin Timberlake, and then Pusha T turned it into a hip hop song, and McDonald's stock, McDonald's sales went through the roof, and literally Black culture saved McDonald's Corporation. Blacks in America are also more likely than the total population to say that they would spend more money on a product that aligns with the image they want to convey. So the use of African American culture as image is actually a magnet for resources from this lucrative group of 50,000 and above that are expending in the travel and tourism industry. Can we go to the next slide, please? In addition, Black consumer purchase decision making, Black consumers are also conscientious shoppers. They seek brands that support causes they care about. So when we see major corporations now investing in social justice movements, to date, it's $6.5 billion that has been committed to social justice. Here we see a direct connection between consumer behavior in the future and investment by corporations now, saying that we are supporting the social movement forward that we're seeing. Blacks respond to marketing and advertising that features Black talent. Can we go to the next slide, please? I want to make sure we end on time here. So let's delve a little bit into the Black business landscape in the United States. This includes those small businesses that Dawn spoke of and Stephanie's organization represents in the travel and tourism industry. Literally from February 20 to April 20, there's been a 41% reduction in those businesses. So some of those businesses are single proprietorships. Some of them have employees, but had challenges getting access to the PPP money. So here we are in comparison to others. That's a huge bite, if you will. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, great. So again, this one's a little tighter, but hopefully you can see it or enlarge it on your screen. When we look at Black-owned businesses by industry, can you see what the top industry is? It aligns with the top area of employment African Americans find themselves in the essential market of health and healthcare and social assistance. Can you see that? And then if we go down, that number of businesses was 482,000 businesses in that arena, right? And this is 212 data, the recent census data available. If we jump down to arts and entertainment recreation, which is almost halfway down, right below construction, there are 124 companies, Black-owned businesses, that operate in this area. And again, hospitality cuts across several of these. We can understand that hospitality, travel and tourism sites, et cetera, falls into this arts and entertainment and recreation. Could we go to the next slide, please? I think there are 2-3 more slides here. Okay, can we go back one? Perfect. So on this slide, there's a lot of data, but what I want you to tune into is line 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we have the demographic of business losses once again occurring during COVID. And this data comes from the National Bureau of Economic Research, where it says Black, February 2020, the number they counted was 1,079,000 businesses owned. April 2020, that number was reduced 41%, 637,441,000 of those businesses are no longer here. That's 41% above and beyond other cohorts. 32% Latinx, 26% Asian, 17% Caucasian, 36% immigrant businesses. That 41% is an issue. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here we are. The COVID has devastated the hotel industry, and the Ingram Nob Hoods Group speak to this, but also the American Hotel and Lodging Association has pointed out that we are 11 times worse right now than during 9/11. That's the impact this is having on the hotel industry currently, and I'm sure you're feeling that as DMOs and with businesses that are on the ground adjacent to hotels. And what that means is it looks like the turnaround is going to come 2 years from now in 2022. In the recent survey of AHLA members, more than 8 in 10 hotel employees said that they had to lay off or furlough workers. And here's that 37% again. Only 37% have been able to rehire any staff through economic relief and measures such as PPP. Can we go to the next to the last slide, please? And this is the number. There we go. Thank you. This is the number that speaks to business losses by industry. So this may be a bit redundant, and I know it's a little in the weeds here for you, but if you will just tune in to arts, leisure, and hotels. Thank you. April 2020, there were 442,000 of these, and look at the reduction. 242,000 reduction, 35% reduction. So we're feeling this pinch here. And in order to get out of this, to overcome this, of course, wear your mask, wash your hands. But let's go to the next slide, please. Here are some points made by leaders in the travel and tourism and hospitality industry. The United Nations World Tourism Organization, Mr. Zurab
Polakashvili.
Thank you. Thank you. Has made this point. He states that post-COVID-19 recovery of cultural tourism should leave no one behind. And we've heard Marian Wright Elderman say this term for many years, leave no child behind. And we've heard Mary McLeod Bethune say, leave no one behind, lift as we climb. This is what the industry must do. And then Blacks in Hospitality Industry Leadership, in their particular report, here's the statement that they made that I'd like to lift out. Rehiring after COVID-19 is a unique opportunity to reshape the industry for a diverse marketplace. More specifically, it's an opportunity to do business with diverse businesses that are in the marketplace in order to assist in expanding and reshaping what new business looks like post-COVID in travel and tourism. Thank you. I believe that's the last slide. Can we go to just the others to show you
I'm
the
sorry, Jen,
references?
I'm gonna have,
Yes,
yeah, they're on here. I'm
that's
gonna
it.
have to ask the
We're
rep.
done.
You got
Thank
two.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was
Absolutely.
perfect. Okay, Helen. Unmute yourself, Helen.
I did.
Excellent.
Okay. So, thank you, John, and thank you, Stephanie. I'm very privileged to be on this panel with two esteemed colleagues and being able to share in this focus and effort in the Blacks in Travel and Tourism industries collaboration. I've been asked to give sort of the big picture on the international marketplace, but also to look at ways in which you could plan long-term as opposed to only looking now, as we are, at the short-term survival, and maybe giving you basically a reach out into the future that would hold you and make you sustainable. And in that regard, I'm going to try to address sort of giving you some of the data of the big picture. I don't want to overload you because Dr. Rogers' presentation was so intriguing. Thank you for that. And then why the international market now at this time and place, and how to expand in doing so, what resources there are to use. I don't have the nitty gritty. I'm not going to tell you the exact why and wherefore, but I'll give you the resources that you can draw upon and partner with, which is going to be the critical aspect. Just to set the tone, travel and tourism internationally in the global marketplace, according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, is 1 in 10 jobs are appointed to this industry. I think that the bringing us to the knees globally has definitely demonstrated that this is an important integral industry to so many economies across the globe. And that's shown in the job loss as well as the curtailed growth in GDP that we're going to be experiencing. But nearly 30% of the marketplace and of the spend in travel and tourism is attributed to international markets. So if we look at why is it critical to engage now in the international marketplace, it is where the high yield travelers are. And the overseas travelers to the US represent a very high spend per capita. Now, this doesn't take away from Mexico and Canada and their importance, as they're represented nearly half the marketplace for the US and for your reach. Canada in particular may be of particular interest as the borders open again. But at this time, we are looking at the overseas travelers because over half of them engage in cultural heritage activities. So do they know about your business? That's what we're here today to take a look at. And we know that people in the studies that we're seeing, that people are wanting to plan and consider and dream about new opportunities and places to travel internationally, and coming to the US is a very big come on, and they could find new product and marketing capabilities through your efforts. So I think that you need to know it takes 2 to 3 years for your investment to be realized, but it doesn't make it less important. So invest now so they remember you. They'll know you when they come back to from the borders being opened, but they know then that you are interested in the downtime, not just in the uptime. Looking at the overall marketplace, you'll get these slides later. They'll be distributed to you, so don't worry about reading everything. And I've skipped a few that you'll get, like on the impact of the world impact of global travel and tourism in your packet when Stephanie is kind enough to send them out. But this one just gives you an idea of the concentration of the marketplace, and mainly that certainly the commanding positioning of Asia Pacific, particularly due to the outbound travel market from China, but Europe is still the center for travel and tourism and source market for you all. Americas certainly command a strong third position, and this is important to see. And I think that as we go forward, right now it's gone down 97%. the range of end of year data will show probably down 50, anywhere from 38 to 58%, or 78%. So with that in mind, we're talking further years out here for you to consider this. The United States has commanded always a good lead position in the numbers of travelers, 79.3 million, and with United States commanding the very top position in receipts. We are an export for our country, the top services export, so this is important to see the commanding position that we have. In the marketplace for the US, these are the top 10 markets. They generate a lot of expenditures when they come here. They're measured, we can't send our country out for them to purchase, so they have to come here, and that's considered an export versus if we sent out the tabletop for them to buy. The Canada and Mexico, as you can see, are still very important markets for us, but in the top markets, the UK, Japan, and China have been very important and should not be neglected, but I think as we move forward, we'll look at some of the overseas European markets for you to start if you aren't entering into this yet. So the quick facts are very simple, and they're on the U.S. Department of Commerce's website. The National Travel and Tourism Office is really the provider of the key data on international travel flows to and from, and the Bureau of Economics works with them for configuring the balance of trade, attributed to the fact that we are the top services export. And mostly I wanted to show you on this slide that we're seeing an emerging segment of the repeat travelers. Top 10 countries are showing declines in first-time travelers. So this gives an opportunity for them to come and see something different than the mainstay products and experiences that are put out there most of the time. And China even has more repeat travelers now. Now this is 2019 data, but it gives you a guidance for consideration. You can see they spend an average of 19 nights, so they're long-term visitors and are able to go to many places when they come. And with over 15 countries having over 1 million travelers coming to our shores, it's very important that you look at expanding your partnerships to gain a strength of voice. So I'd like to take a few minutes at looking more specifically at the profile of the cultural heritage travelers that are coming to the U.S. from overseas markets, which is over 55% of the total overseas travelers, 22.5 million. They have a high income, 87,000, and they're generally, well, they're a lot younger than I am, but they're active in the 40s, and mainly that they're making the booking through what you would think traditionally airlines and online travel agencies, but personal recommendations are a very strong purveyor of new travelers as well as repeat travelers. So you do right by them, they'll go back and they'll tell at least 10 people about their experience and get more interest for you. Out of the source markets that are key, as I showed you earlier or alluded to, I believe that you should focus in the European market initially if you haven't entered. Otherwise, take advantage of other programs and access that you could have through the Asian markets. But the UK, Germany, and French markets have a good intrinsic interest anyway in a lot of the culture that is not on the main path. They like going on the off-beaten path, and they like learning something new, and that's where you have this opportunity to really ring a new bell and new experience for them. Where are they going? Well, it's not unlike the normal total international overseas traveler coming to the Mid-Atlantic, which is mainly New York City, but the cultural heritage traveler is going to Pennsylvania as well. South Atlantic is primarily within the Florida region, but I think that, you know, up in Atlantic City and different areas are still coming in on the freight, so that's not to be neglected, and that's where a richness can be expanded. The mountain and New England areas are also quite interesting. The shopping, other activities with shopping and sightseeing are ones that give you the opportunity for partnering. Are you going to interrupt me, Dawn? Am I past my time?
I was just going to tell you we have 1 minute.
Oh, well, okay. I only have a few slides left anyway. So The key resources for tapping are not linear, they're circular, they're all sorts of places around. As you know, GMOs are on this call. Your local organizations, such as the Black Travelers in Tourism, are definitely in the collaborative, are a good, strong place to accent your voice. I'm going to raise the National Travel and Tourism Office with the Department of Commerce Trade Specialists, and as well as your state tourism office, but the regional marketing organizations are out there, and there are in-market organizations as well as the embassies in the markets that we've discussed. The regional marketing organizations all have websites. It would be a very good collaboration for you to get to know them if you haven't and learn their programs. They have showcases, FAM tours that they can help sponsor, along with buyers coming in to look at the products and opportunities here in the US that are different, and that's what they're all thirsting for. So this is a very good, strong opportunity for collaboration. I've ended with the fact that, without question, at the end of the day, it's about the consumer. This is a survey that was done by Statista in Britain, the top overseas market. And you can see that 35% still are missing their holiday. They live on an island. They are desperate to get out to new fields. And when the borders are opening, they'll go. They'll come, and they like to experience something different when they do. They're so familiar. At the end of the day, these are resources you can use for learning and watching the trends. I leave it with you to check that. So you are definitely in the platform of opportunity now. And I think the collaboration with the Blacks in Travel and Tourism is a perfect fulcrum for you. There's partnerships across many layers, but use your voice, amplify it, make this, the time is ripe, and invest now in your future so that you have the sustainability that's needed as we go forward, and leading you into working closely with Brand USA and the Department of Commerce National Travel and Tourism Office and the U.S. Travel Association. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Helen. Tom, if you can unmute.
Thanks, Helen, Dawn. It's great to be with all of you. I'm just sharing my desktop here. And I really do appreciate, hang on, what's happening? What's happening to my, let me just do this. I'll go through it this way. So thanks. I'm glad to be part of this this panel, which I would say is made up of some old friends and new friends, and an important topic that has been, especially in these last few weeks, really important to me. And I just want to, because everyone on this call is certainly stakeholders of Brand USA in some way or another, I want to just kind of go through some quick things on what we're doing and try to get through this so that quickly so that we can get to some discussion. But you know, Brand USA, we are the destination marketing organization for the United States. We were created by the Travel Promotion Act of 2010 that was signed by President Obama, the nation's first public-private partnership to promote travel to the USA. And our mission is pretty straightforward: increase incremental international visitation and spend in the US. Couple of important points. First of all, Brand USA uses no federal tax dollars. We are funded by a fee that international travelers pay, ESTR fees, along with and matched by contributions from stakeholders across the industry. And another point that's especially come up lately is the importance to point out that Brand USA, by the Travel Promotion Act, is prohibited from using funds for domestic marketing. So some of you might wonder if we're thinking about kind of reshifting resources in this recovery period. We can't. So anyway, our role in travel and tourism is to promote. We are the marketing arm of the United States. We have our partners at U.S. Travel, who are advocates, our partners at the Department of Commerce, Office of Travel and Tourism Industries, who do the policy setting. In terms of destination marketing, we do all the traditional things that destination marketers do, right? Research, consumer and trade messaging, website development. We have our boots on the ground around the world, product development, travel trade engagement. But what is unique about us is we are telling the stories of 50 states, 5 territories, District of Columbia, hundreds and hundreds of cities, thousands of attractions. It's a vast, broad, and amazing pool from which to tell our stories. And ultimately, where we focus is around storytelling. And something that Dawn alluded to earlier, we've developed over time our many voices multi-screen strategy. And just to point out the point about the many voices platform, and just to read quickly that this represents kind of our guiding principles, right? Which is we are the USA, a collection of places and experience whose spirit is found in its diverse range of people. We're here to guide you, to help you discover that behind every mountain, every skyscraper, whether on the fast lane or a country road, there are many voices who are happy to show you around. Those many voices are locals, visitors, category experts, the creative class. We have gathered over time hundreds and hundreds of them and told hundreds of stories. We'll get to that a little bit. I want to move on really quickly to the issue at hand, which is what has happened around the pandemic and how that's changed or shifted kind of where we've had to go. And we look at it really in 3 buckets. Brand USA's ongoing efforts that I refer to as keeping the lights on, our recovery and market reentry planning, which I say is kind of, we know the what, not the when. And finally, our global marketplace and travel week in terms of creating reentry vehicles for our stakeholders when it's time to get back into the international marketing world. We look at a number of keys to determining recovery around, freedom of movement when restrictions have been lifted on travelers, when flight capacity and attractions and activities open back up, and when consumers are confident that they can travel safely and easily. Those things will come together and turn us on to our recovery mode. In the meantime, we continue to educate, entertain, and inspire. We are very much in the trade. We are keeping the lights on. And, this is something our partners, our stakeholders have really, really asked us. As you all are focused on your domestic and existential issues, we are getting up every day around the world. We're educating, entertaining, and inspiring the trade. We have trained since just the mid-February when all this started, over 45,000 agents. We are doing tour operator briefings, very, very on the ground kind of engagement with the trade community. Some of you may have already been engaging in our research webinars. We went from a quarterly research webinar to monthly that started in March. The next one I just point out to you is July 21st. You just go to thebrandUSA.com. You can find out how to register for that. But that is monthly market data, sentiment data, and other information that our partners find really valuable. We continue to do inspirational work on the ground, our always on content with things like United Stories, our Go USA TV channel, which features 345 more destinations. We're starting to move into multi-language. It also features films, our long form documentary films like America's Musical Journey, which was narrated by Morgan Freeman and features Aloe Black. And all of that storytelling. We're proud to say we're working on a Black Voices playlist curated by Brian Newton, who's a producer and distributor who we've been working with on some of our original content development. And he's helping us curate this from content that we have. I would say to you, we are also looking at developing additional content. Right now, we are in that mode of waiting for us to be able to go back out and create new content. Sorry, I have something popped up on my screen there. But we're doing that. And then just to kind of really summarize our reentry and recovery, there's a lot of words on a slide there, but basically we're looking at kind of 3 levels, right? Our reentry plan for the trade, which is, an 18-month long process of offering destinations and partners programs, continuing our training, doing events, keeping the travel agent and the tour operator ready to be booking. And then on our consumer side, quick start campaigns that will become lower funnel call to action campaigns, trying to book product, helping to, get the prime the pump around driving bookings. And then eventually resuming kind of our top funnel inspirational messaging, which will then lead to additional United Stories content, Go USA TV content, and other programs. And all of this work, we are working on hard. We never stop trying to tell our stories about the diversity of our country in as many ways as we can. We are, I'm quite lucky to have an amazing, talented and diverse group of storytellers who are working on this every day. And I think we've been doing that, but it became evident to me, and I will say, a couple of conversations that I had with Stephanie just recently really brought home to me the most important point, because to add on to some of the things that Helen was saying about how important international inbound tourism is great, but the question becomes, how does the Black tourism community, many of which are hyper local, cultural activities, restaurants, experiences, how do these small businesses break through locally and internationally? And that's where I see Brand USA stepping up and doing something that we haven't done, or haven't done nearly to the degree we will. And that is to develop a national multicultural and heritage experience platform that takes existing experiences and itineraries that do exist, and they do exist in different cities and areas, and some are better promoted than others. But to look at those, but for us at Brand USA to be looking across the country at the places and stories and experiences where they are lacking, and to help build those, and to support them with our storytelling and training tools at every level, which just simply says, even when you look at the storytelling we have, America's Musical Journey, Hear the Music, where we're telling the stories of cultural experience in these towns and cities, we need to kind of add to that the itineraries and the product and the tools to get the consumer to look at those things and really learn how to do it. The other beneficial piece of this will be, in doing that, we will engage our state and city DMO partners in that work, which will get them to want to incorporate these things into their local marketing efforts, which is something that Stephanie really made clear to me is where the need really resides. So what I can say about this is this is something we are going to do. We're going to start working on. We're going to start to engage with a lot of the stakeholders who are on this call. Stephanie, your group, Dawn, I know you have a lot of advice for us on that. But anyway, I want to get to the discussion, but I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to have been part of this panel and part of these discussions, which led directly to my realization, and I think my company's realization, that this is how we can step up and help from an economic perspective the Black travel and tourism community. So thanks for all that. Let me go to my last slide, which just has my email address in case anybody wants to contact me directly. And with that, I will stop sharing and come back to all of you.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much. You never stop sharing. Yeah. And thank you to Helen and Dennis. So just a couple of things before we turn over the Q&A. Looks like we're having a number of questions come in, and but just a couple of things to bring up. One, Tom, the second to last slide I think you had is the recovery strategy. And if we could talk for a minute about points of access for that, for anybody who wanted to participate in that recovery strategy. How do businesses, Black businesses, begin to participate with Brand USA in those stages of the recovery strategy, particularly the short term, because these businesses are hurting very badly right now, and as you know, shutting down.
Yeah, and you know what I would say is where we are in that process right now is we are, you know, planning and preparing and kind of, you know, I think of it as kind of, you know, winding up the spring so that whenever the time comes and it doesn't look like it's in the next 60 or 90 days, it's beyond that, of really launching out on the consumer side. On the trade side, we could be doing things pretty quickly. And I would just say to this audience and that if you're not already engaged with DMOs or CVBs, then to us, to try to just engage with us directly, which is to come to us. And we are, you know, we've just got to build out itineraries and ways that those experiences can be built into our training programs. And so we're going to be starting that work. It's going to happen. It's going to be done. And one thing about this kind of, I don't want to call it a quiet period. Everybody on this call from Brand USA will be like, are you kidding me? We haven't been quiet. But we are going to take the time to kind of try to build this platform out, and it'll never stop. It'll always keep building. But I would just say if there's a specific partner who we can help, I mean, connect with us, and we'll try to connect you with your local CVB, DMO to, you know, to make it part of the bigger story.
The other thing is across the board, all three of you have referenced how influencers, you know, how people get information and who inspires or informs them about where to go. I mean, Dennis, Dr. Rogers, you mentioned that Blacks are very influenced by family members and friends. Helen, you've mentioned the same kind of thing in general. So Tom, sorry to like keep leveling this at you. You know, I think that there is a room to build a peer-to-peer channel somehow. And I know that there are a couple of videos. There's one, Americanos. You know, would Brand USA consider one on the African-American experience? And not just like the historical stuff, but the current experience. You know, how can the industry at large help you get that done if they feel it needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, the simple answer to that is yes, absolutely. I mean, I think we've built, and I think, again, in my conversation with Stephanie, I mean, she gave me a really good insight into the fact that, yes, we've built out some good content around that, but we haven't lifted it out to give it its own platform. And that's kind of all part and parcel to what I was just saying is we will do that. Unfortunately, in the moment, we're in a paused mode in terms of creating our own. But we curate, we license, and we produce our own content. So I would also say people that have great content, great storytelling around their activities, their cultural experiences, they again can come and share that with us. And if it works for the channel, we'll put it up immediately. Or we'll work with you to kind of make it make sense. But as we get out of this situation right now and move forward, we will definitely be looking at creating those kinds of stories. And by the way, how those things come to us, Americanos, Trails and Trailblazers, some of these other things, these are productions that are proposed to us, brought to us that we like. So we will, again, as we open up for new production, be wanting to see any and all,
Okay.
ideas.
We only have a few minutes left.
I have several questions that have just come in.
Great. Okay,
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Steph.
All
Nick.
right, terrific, terrific. Well, Tom, I just want to say you have several new fans. We have a few folks that say that I love hearing this from Tom and Brand USA. Not a question, just have to say it out loud. We have someone who said, I've been waiting 22 years to hear what Tom just said for Brand USA. Let's see. Here's a question. Given the short expectation that domestic tourism will come back first and the growing interest in Black cultural experiences due to the current focus on the Black community and history, who beyond local DMOs can play any leadership role to generate more visitors to Black experiences and help Black businesses? Can I take that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's exactly why Blacks in Tourism and Travel exist. For the past 5 years, we've been doing this work in the South Florida market. So we have already created models that help DMOs and destinations engage with their local Black community and their Black businesses, as well as to help them curate cultural heritage tour experiences that create opportunities for Black businesses, attractions, and local residents. So BTT, working in partnership with Brand USA, hopefully, we would love to talk to anyone who needs help or guidance engaging with your local Black community, identifying your local community cultural assets, and then converting those cultural assets into cultural heritage tours and activities that you can then promote your destination to attract inbound travelers. So if you have not signed up through blacksintourism.org so that we can engage with you, please do so. And we can continue to have that conversation and share how BTT can work with you. So I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Well, I think it could be noted as well, Stephanie, from our earlier conversation and from knowing this, that with Richard Peterson in the U.S. Marketing Council, Cultural and Marketing Council, is going to be working in collaboration with you. Many people may know of that from outside the Black community as well as within, but I think it's a nice amplification as you gather up this kind of focused approach. It'd be great.
Absolutely. Let's see. Let me ask one more. This one says, this is for you, Tom. Today, CNN reported encouraging news about COVID therapeutics this fall. How does that affect Brand USA?
Well, if that's true, and when that happens, clearly it will affect all of us, right? I mean, we are a reflection of what's going to be going on around the world. So we are ready, and that our job is to be ready, and we'll be ready. I love the idea that if things can be happening in the fall and people can travel safely, we've got to get our cities open. We have to get our states open. I mean, the impact is if our places can be opening safely and people feel like they could be traveling, if we can, pass through those 3 gates that I referred to earlier, we'll be ready to bring people here. And I will say, when that's happening, for this group, for this audience, for the Black experience, tourism experience community, the international audience is really important because they're in many ways going to take advantage of those local, interesting, different things, even more so than domestic travelers. Not for any other reason, but that's how travel works. When we travel as U.S. citizens abroad, we tend to go do things and do experiences that the locals are like, what, why are you doing that? So, I think there's an opportunity for both. And what, again, I'll say is as we kind of build out these things, and are able to tell stories, I'm hoping that it helps spur the local communities, the local CVBs and DMOs to want to promote them as well. So I'm encouraged that the winter will bring relief from all of this, and we'll start traveling again.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions. Let's see. It says, I am a travel and lifestyle writer and blogger looking for African American content and work with many CVBs in the South. Okay, I think that's for me. I'll reach out to you, Michelle. Let's see. All right. If you have questions specifically for me, please do email me at stephanie@blacksintourism.org. I see some specific questions for me. That's stephanie@blacksintourism.org. I'm going to take one more question, then Don, you can continue. This says, thank you all for this presentation. Helen mentioned there was potential to appeal to European travelers' desire for off the beaten path experiences. For everyone on the panel, what are some examples of cultural attractions, experiences, maybe hyper-local as Tom put it, that you feel have the most untapped potential for Blacks in travel and tourism? For example, tours, attractions based on specific art movements, literature, authors, music history, such as Brand USA playlists, culinary heritage, etc., other experiences. I could answer that, but I'd like to hear from the panelists, if you don't mind.
I'll just use one because I know this will go to Tom anyway, but I'm in Rochester, New York right now for this isolation period, hoping to go home in August. And it's very remarkable being in Rochester, New York, the home of Frederick Douglass, and the kind of history and truly voice that he has brought and has in the past and will now be even more regarded. But in that aspect is the Underground Railroad. There are places here that are very much a part of the history and culture of what's happened to the Black community, to the Black population for years. And the Underground Railroad carries through along the upstate New York area and then some. And people come here to the US from the overseas because they want to see New York City, because they want to go to the center parts. But this up here on upstate New York has so much history and so much unknown, and Rochester's done a good job as a DMO, but it does have a capturing opportunity. So Tom, you can take it from there, or Dennis?
Yes, quite a few come to mind. One that's pertinent to kind of larger social issues. In the city of Asheville, North Carolina, there's an Asheville African American History Tours that uncovers the voices from the past and the present. I'm just going to kind of put my phone up so you can see this this issue. And Asheville is a city that the city council just decided to provide reparations for those in the city of Asheville. So there's some very contemporary issues meshed with historical issues. I think of Tuskegee, Alabama, of course, where the Tuskegee Airmen come from, and all of that history wrapped up in U.S. military history, Oklahoma, places like where the Buffalo Soldiers were, and all of those types of localized efforts, including there's a group, I think they're called the Black Township Group, and they're resurrecting or looking at these historic townships that African Americans moved into immediately following the period of enslavement and right before Reconstruction. So they're almost everywhere, Google searches now, but I think through Stephanie's organization, we have these groups coming together in a manner in which you can kind of access them through the network. So thank you for asking that question. And just one correction, I said earlier that there was $6 billion in play after kind of our social upheaval. Bank of America has committed $1 billion, and then other organizations $100 million, and the actual number is $1.6 billion, not $6 billion, which I said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I think there's another question, Dennis, for you. This came in a little bit earlier. The question reads, there are 9.9% Black employees within leisure and hospitality. What is the percent of Black employees in that sector that are in leadership positions, VP and above, or in board of directors positions? How does that compare? This is like 4 questions. Compare to non-Black and leisure and hospitality, or the U.S. as a whole. You may not have all of those answers, but if there's a way you can speak to that, it would be great.
Great. Yes, there was a study done by the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers. And within the hotel sector specifically, they raised that very question. And the numbers meet out. I can't remember them precisely, but there is a distinction between the number that work in hotels and other sectors and at the executive management level. And the executive management level, I think the number is very low, 8%, 2%, 2.8%, et cetera. In the sources that I indicated, Castwell just did a study on leadership in the hospitality industry, and they point out, Dawn brought this to my attention actually, they point out in their graphics that structurally there is rationale, there is, it's literally structural racism, which is why you don't find as many in the executive level. And as we hit the reset button post-COVID, there are opportunities now to actually expand the executive and management ranks for the purpose of generating more global revenue, truly reflecting America's population.
Yeah.
I have one more thing for you, Dennis. In your current role as head of the Student Leadership LLC that you created, how are you starting to train or advise the younger students who are up and coming, particularly those who might go into a service industry like travel and tourism? How are you starting to help them determine how to develop a career path? Because there is no, in this country, there's no clear career path in this particular, or in this sector and sectors like it.
That's a great question. Well, we know that structurally speaking, on college and university campuses, for example, that there are career service centers. So there are opportunities to connect even the DMOs with career service centers on the university campuses, as well as their academic programs around hospitality and tourism. But the educators are not necessarily communicating with the practitioners. And as a result, there's a disconnect in the information students receive. And so I always encourage students, number one, if you're interested in a career, join as a student member of these professional associations. Often these memberships are $10, $15, and you get the same benefits as a full-fledged member. Secondly, what we're doing is we're connecting students to mentors and students to these organizations to be aware of the opportunities that are available to them while they're still in college. So look for summer internships, and we know COVID is kind of wrinkling that. Students are now at home. Many universities are going to open up at home, and that's an issue. Now at the K through 12 or the high school level, the non-collegiate educated level, we need to do more work in that area, but there are opportunities there as well to pipeline in through the community college system, to pipeline in through high schools so that they're aware. You remember when we were in school, we had career day,
Yeah.
where everyone, parents would show up and talk about what they do. Some of those opportunities we need to do digitally, and we need to do in person when it's possible as COVID kind of subsides for us.
Okay, great. I think we're going to have to turn this back over to Stephanie. It's 10 after 2. Steph?
Yes. I want to say thank you all so very much for this very, very vibrant conversation. Thank you, Dawn, for moderating. Thank you, Helen, Tom, and Dennis, for providing such great insight on the work that Brand USA and WTTC offers to the travel industry. Thank you, Dennis, for sharing this rich research that most, particularly small businesses, don't have access to. And hopefully, many of the DMOs that are represented, you saw some new data that can become beneficial to you as you develop your recovery plans, but also as you develop your diversity and inclusion plans, your local engagement plans. Please do feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. because together, working together, we can make change happen in this industry. And I do know that many DMOs, they want to engage more with their local communities. It's okay if you don't know how. We can help you. So please use us as a resource. If we don't have the answers, we'll be happy to connect you with members that are part of the collaborative, and we invite you to join the collaborative so that you can also have access to Blacks in Travel and Tourism, as well as our allies who have joined the work that we are engaging in. I do want to just recall that our next webinar, next Thursday, is going to be presenting some of the top Black educators in the hospitality and tourism programs at HBCUs, and they'll be talking about their programs as well as how they are working to prepare the next generation of travel and tourism industry professionals. Yeah, that's going to be a great conversation. So again, we thank you all for tuning in, for joining us in this conversation. We will continue to bring thought leaders forward throughout the rest of the year. We will continue to introduce new voices and faces within the industry to talk about conversations that we don't typically talk about. I want to say again, especially to you, Tom, thank you for hearing me when we had our conversation. And again, thank you for not just putting things on paper, but actually taking action and putting steps in place for us to be able to be more inclusive and diverse in this industry and to advance Blacks in travel and tourism. BTT looks forward to working in collaboration with you to launch this multicultural heritage initiative, because that's right up our alley. And Helen, again, thank you so much for educating the listeners about opportunities, international opportunities, because oftentimes many small businesses, they don't know how to engage on an international level or on a national level with organizations such as yours. So again, I want to say thank you very much to our moderator and our panelists for facilitating this very important conversation. I want to thank you to those of you who tuned in. We thank you for continuing to come back, and we look forward to you participating in our upcoming webinar next Thursday. Thank you, everybody. Continue to be safe out there, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.